Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, LuAnn Nigara. LuAnn has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. LuAnn brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Lynn Leonidas is with me today. Lynn is the principal of Lynn K, Leonidas Design and Decoration from the San Francisco Bay Area. And Lynn takes particular pride in her relationships with her vendors, and she describes how it comes from having a contractor father who taught her about building techniques and materials. She has a degree in interior design and architecture, as well as a degree in English language and literature. Her work has been featured in Sunset, Domino, Lonny, and Refinery 29. Today, we're going to have a nice conversation with Lynn, and I have a little aha moment just a few moments into the conversation, which is sort of funny, especially, and think about when this bio that I just read to you guys, okay? And then listen for my little what? Anyway, so hang on a few moments while I tell you about our show sponsor, and I'll be right back to introduce you to Lynn. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Cherish, and to let you know about this gem of a resource. Cherish, which can be found at www.charish.com/trade, is the premier online marketplace where design pros just like you can go to source the best vintage decor and furniture. With more than 125,000 curated items for sale, Cherish makes it easy, fun, and fast for you to find stylish pieces at great deals to suit every client and every project. The items are ready to ship, hint, hint, which means no waiting, and Cherish offers a 2-day return policy. Here's some more good stuff. Cherish trade members enjoy special benefits, including cash back on every purchase, white glove delivery, and exclusive concierge service. Sign up for their trade program today at www.cherish.com/trade. Hi, Lynn. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, so this is pretty interesting here. I, just had a little aha off air, and I'm going to share it with everybody because I have just told everybody your introduction, and your introduction has quite a few achievements on it, and you've been published in some very notable places. And I just learned that you're only in your own firm 2 years, so now I'm even more intrigued than I was, just 12 minutes ago. So, tell us. I think, Lynn, the first thing that I would love to know then is what. Look. I just got done reading how you're in Lonny magazine, Domino magazine, Sunset magazine,
Yes.
magazine. I mean, 2 years. I've interviewed a lot of people in a year and a half, Lynn, and that is quite a bit in 2 years. So what do you think it is? Is it your background? I do know that you're 10 years in the industry. Is it your work background that you think informed you hitting the ground so solidly in just 2 years? Could you maybe give us a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that a little bit. So, when I started my firm 2 years ago, I actually wanted to come in strong with a PR strategy. And when I started my firm, I had a photo shoot of our apartment shot for Domino, and it was coming out in 6 months. And I had that 6 months to decide what I wanted to do, if that was to continue working as a project manager at the design studio I was at, or if it was time to go out on my own. So within that 6 months, I developed a strategy. That's a marketing strategy. But I'm going to start a little bit before that, actually, because when I went to college, I got my first degree in English literature. So I was always interested in interior design, but when I left school for English, I worked for a few editorial magazines. So that experience really opened my eyes to see how well that strategy would work if I were to ever go out on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were able to look at it from the editorial standpoint, what a magazine editor is looking for when it came time for you to launch your own company.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now I just have a question for you. So you spend 10 years in the industry, and I know from our little bit of discussion off air, and I'll share it with people, that you were an assistant designer in one location, then you worked for a window treatment workroom, and you worked your way up to be a project manager in that workroom. And I know that was good training for interior design. I'm just saying.
Yes.
And then you were eventually a project manager at another interior design firm. So the question is when you just had that moment where you were getting your own work published and you knew that it was coming out in 6 months in Domino, and you just said that you intended to open your firm with a strong PR strategy. Lynn, does that mean that you, just based on your background in college, your background as an editorial magazine worker, that you just devised it on your own, or you invested dollar bills in working with a PR firm and coming up with the strategy in conjunction with what you know and what they know?
Sure. No, I actually immediately knew I needed help and started shopping around for PR firms, also a business coach, and all this before I even decided that I was going to open my own company.
That's amazing.
And initially, I was just searching out these people to talk about how to give the article that was coming out more longevity. So maybe there were more outlets that the apartment could be featured in. Maybe it could move from print to online outlets as well. After having conversations with a few different companies, I actually started working with Krista Cooper from Consulting. I know she's been on the show a couple times. I love listening to her.
I love it too.
And I also have a business coach, and her name is Sarah Schulweiss of Anchor and Orbit, and she is local to Oakland.
Okay.
So upon stumbling upon those two and talking to them, both of them responded to me and said, "What are you doing with this? Why do you want to promote this if you're not going to go out on your own? There's no point." So,
right. Okay. Because in other words, at that point, you hadn't necessarily decided to go on your own. You had this project, you wanted to publish it, you thought it would be amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then a business was born.
Yeah. I needed help, and these great women came and lifted me up.
Yeah. So, but the thing is there's a lot of intention there. So, here you are, maybe we need to take it back one step further. How did you land a feature in Domino magazine when, hello, you're not even on your own yet? And I get that you've got a beautiful apartment that's going to be photographed, but it must have been some of what you said before. It came from your previous experience. But how did you go about doing that? Because I've had guests come on, and that's a dream for them to be on Domino, like, let alone somebody who's not even on their own yet. So how did that happen, Lynn?
Yes, it was definitely a dream. I had been following Domino since their first issue. So this happened. I entered in 2014, Domino had a spring contest, and they used to have these, and I think they've only had 2 or 3, and they've since then stopped having them. The spring contest was where you could enter your apartment or your space. You can take photos of it for Instagram and enter into a competition that was voted on by their readers, and also they had a small group of panelists, and it was, and I won the contest.
Wow.
In 2014. But I did position the apartment for that. Once I heard that the contest was happening, I took photos myself, and I got ready to put them on Instagram all at the same time so that they could be seen in a big chunk, on the feed.
Okay.
And I was noticed by the person who nominated me was Justina Blakeney of the Jungalow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So voting went through. I won, which surprised me too. And a couple of months later, they came from New York. The editor and photographer flew in from New York to San Francisco for the shoot. Yeah.
So now those original photographs that you put on Instagram, did you invest in professional photography or you used your own photography?
I used my own photography, and it was Instagram 3 years ago. So I think the filters back then were not as advanced as they are now, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty interesting thing. And here's the little nugget in there. So you win this contest, and here's the twist. Instead of, which would have been perfectly reasonable, to be flattered and proud and, yo, this is great, and I'm going to be in Domino, you then go right out and figure out, okay, I need a PR consultant, I need a business coach, and I need to know how to, as you said, get some more longevity out of this one piece. And that is a particularly brilliant move on your part, Lynn, I have to say. Because a lot of us, through our lives have opportunities like this, whatever they may be, whether it's a show house or it's whatever it could be. And we just are happy for it in the moment. We have the little bit of PR and buzz that it's created in the moment, but we don't often go with intention and think, okay, this is going to happen on this date in 6 months. And what other ways can I go about actionably and with intention, expand on this opportunity? So, whoa, smart on you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And talk about a way to launch a business. So now here's the thing. You launched the business based on this opportunity, but that didn't necessarily mean that you were quite ready from a business standpoint to be in business. Yeah. So what else did you do once you were like, oh, okay, a lot of smart women are telling me I should do this and I think on it. What did you do then in order to be prepared? Because in 2 years you have not stumbled. You are continuing to grow and continuing to create, a lot of marketing and a lot of buzz about yourself. So you must have the business end locked down.
Yes. So I was intentional about promoting the article when it came out, and maybe not so necessarily intentional about what I was going to do after that.
Okay.
But I did, the call to action came, and I did reach inside myself and into my background to really think about the dream company that I've wanted to start. And I pulled a lot from my experience working with the upholstery workroom and the window coverings workroom that I was at. Mm-hmm. And from there, I had actually, as a project manager, worked with over 40 different interior design firms locally. Mm-hmm. And I was able to see their best practices, those who had the best practices, and also the opposite of that, those who just it wasn't working for them, or they were in over their heads. And using that experience, I could cull the best practices for myself.
Right. It is a learning experience that's how come the podcast was born, because I've worked for over 30 years with, dozens and dozens of interior designers, and I've consistently watched that their success is not due to their talent, unfortunately. It's due to their ability to run a good business. So, you do see firsthand the companies that are well run and organized and what works and what doesn't work. So that was very smart. I don't know where I just came. I think it was Rania from House of Funk. I interviewed her recently.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I think I listened to that one, yeah.
Yes, and she talked about how when she has interns working for her there at the firm, that she encourages them to don't just stand there and make copies. Stand there and look at what you're making copies of, and understand the information and understand what, is happening in the firm, so that you can take that knowledge with you. And so that's exactly what you're describing. You're working with all of these design firms, and you're not just executing your end of the job. You're paying attention to what's happening on their end. So good for you.
Absolutely. I was a sponge, and I have been the same at every firm I've worked at ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Sandra, she's so smart. She's such a great businesswoman. I've listened to her. She's so great.
Yes.
And so learning, being a sponge, I was a project manager, but I was always at small firms. So I got to have different roles in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, I also learned how our principals that I worked for, how they interacted with other vendors, how they interacted with their own business network. And I wanted to know what everybody did.
Right.
I wanted to know, what does your website designer do? What does your accountant do? What's the difference between your accountant and your bookkeeper? All of that. And so I soaked it in, and I used that information to guide me to where I am today.
Very smart. Very smart. So now tell us about the beginning. So you have the Domino spread, but you don't really have a portfolio at this point, I'm imagining, since you've been working for other people.
Yes.
What did you do after that? I mean, how do you it's like probably the number one question I get is, if I'm new in business, what do I put on a website if I don't have a portfolio? Or how do I talk to a client and tell them I have confidence and I can do their project when I don't have a portfolio to show? What did you do, Lynn?
Sure. Yes. At that point, I didn't have the Domino photo shoot yet either.
Right.
So,
right.
I had my apartment as the calling card, but I didn't get clients that way. And when I started my firm, or decided to, I didn't necessarily have a first client yet either.
Okay.
But all the cards fell together. It was serendipitous how it happened. But I did, through a friend's network, met somebody who was in need of an interior designer, and I decided I wanted to help him out. But I actually, not having the complete background to work on his project on my own, I actually called in a friend, someone who I had worked with before at another firm, and she had already struck out on her own. So she was a few months ahead of me, had her own company, and we actually partnered on this first project together. That actually gave me the confidence, the second eye to tackle a project, and I could bring my strengths, which were design and project management, and she could bring hers too. Together, my first client became a full scale gut renovation of a whole home with furnishings.
You just jump right into everything you do, clearly.
Yeah. I think the opportunity presented itself to us, and the client was I asked us how much we could do, and we just took it on. So,
Okay, so that really, truly was just that first client, whoever that man was, he literally could have needed just his bachelor pad refurnished, or he could have needed a whole house. It was the coincidence of the contact and then the coincidence of the level of project that he needed. Okay, so that's sort of you got lucky with that. However, the part that was calculated and smart was that when you recognized that it was a full-on project, that rather than do it and either be completely stressed and overwhelmed and second-guessing yourself the entire time, or walk away from it in fear of that you weren't up for the project, you reached out to a colleague that you could trust and you knew that you could count on to be your second there with you on that. And so that's very smart. And then so what happens? So do you have other projects when this whole gut renovation goes on, or is it so new that really this is the first project and it takes X amount of months and nothing else happens while it's happening?
Sure. So we started the project. It was a pretty quick project. We came in in the middle of demolition already.
Okay.
And the client was a property developer, which also happens to be very lucky as a first client. Um, he was a property developer, so he had a schedule and he wanted to get done. Um,
Okay.
and um, so I think we actually only worked on that project for about 6 months. So my first 6 months, he was my client, but we were pretty much full time for him.
Hmm.
And in that time, I did get calls from other clients, but I also was referred to a lot of his friends. So
Mm.
I ended up doing his mother-in-law's house. I ended
Mm.
up doing a restaurant eventually for one of his friends, um, and then other properties for him also.
Wow.
So it was a great first relationship.
Well, and I'm going to tell you what, we've pointed out a couple of times that it was lucky, but the reality is that, and I've said it on the show before,
Right.
you were prepared to be lucky. You
Yeah.
had spent, anybody else could have spent 10 years in the same positions that you spent, but not spending in the same way. Like you said, asking questions about bookkeeping versus accounting, taking notice of how projects are successfully run and the pitfalls of projects that are not successfully run. And so that, yes, okay, you got lucky, but somebody who hadn't been, as you described, a sponge, they could have gotten the same opportunity, but maybe it would have imploded for them because they would have truly, even with the help of another colleague, could have, just totally not executed the job in 6 months or anything else like that, and therefore it would have been a missed opportunity, and somebody would be 3 years later saying, well, I just never get any good jobs, and it's only because they don't complete any jobs well so that they can get referred to other jobs.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, so I don't want to make light of the fact. I think it's awesome that look, to everybody's life, a little luck comes, right? That's not a saying because it doesn't happen a billion times, but you do have to be prepared to execute on that opportunity. And I can see that you were. So, okay. So now your pipeline starts to get a little bit full. What happens, Lynn? Do you automatically, because your first project was a larger scale project, is it that you've just out of the gate become known as a designer who does fuller, larger projects? Or do you then kind of circle back and, because most designers, a lot of them anyway, start out with a guest bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, and they are always asking me, ask them how we transfer from going to one-off rooms to full house projects or something like that. So did it just build for you from there, or because it was a new firm, did you then go back and start to have one-off rooms and things? How did that work?
Sure. Well, I have two answers to that.
Okay.
So the first thing is, I did do this complete home renovation, but it didn't get added to our portfolio for at least a year after that. We didn't take photos right away.
Okay.
We let the family live there. And so I still yet only had one project in my portfolio, and that was my apartment by the time that had come out.
Wow.
And let's see. So this is actually where my business consultant comes in. This is the second part of the answer.
Okay.
She really took it back to the foundation and asked me why I do what I do, what I want out of it. So it was all about setting intentions at first. What kind of designer did I want to be? Did I want to do full homes like the other principal designers I had worked for? Would I be okay with just small rooms? Do I want to market myself as a kitchen and bath designer only? That kind of questioning. And so I really got to develop my dreams and pretty much what is essentially a business plan. So I started it without a business plan, but we have goals, and I check in with her every month. And so essentially we are working on our business plan, renegotiating it every month. But so in the beginning, we did that. And then I got to figure out what I would and wouldn't do, starting to set boundaries with myself, with the kind of work I wanted to take on. And really started to shape like where I wanted to go, and also being confident in that if I wasn't getting the kinds of calls necessarily 90% of the time, like maybe I could wait out for that 10% to get a call for a job I wanted.
Okay, so what you're saying is you decided with intention and counsel from your business coach that you wanted to do larger projects. And so with the help and the confidence that the coach lended to you, when smaller opportunities came along to redo somebody's master bedroom or guest bedroom or just do furnishings and a fresh up, you just said no to it. You just said, and put faith in the fact that if you said no 9 times out of 10, that 10th time would come along.
That is the theory.
Okay.
I think in practice, I did have a hard time turning down jobs that weren't right for me, but having the experience of budgeting jobs, of knowing how much time in hours that we would take or I could take to finish a job, and just being upfront with clients about that when they called. Are you ready for this kind of commitment to the clients?
So wait, what are you saying? Are you saying if somebody was asking you to do a smaller project, you priced it so that it was worth your while to do it? And if they understood that and accepted, then in the beginning you did that, as opposed to doing, because I feel like a lot of people, at least what I hear from a lot of designers is, younger, newer designers, is that they get roped into doing these smaller projects that they don't end up making money on them because they are running 15 times to reselect something that should have been picked one time, right? So is that what you're saying, that if you were going to take it, you just established ahead of time a criteria of price point, and if the person agreed, you said, okay, then I'll do this project, and if they didn't, then you were more able to walk away? Did I hear that correctly? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I had to know what I wanted, and it's all about, for me, setting the precedent when I talk to a client. So immediately, I want to know what kind of budget they have, how comfortable are they working with an interior designer and with an hourly service like mine. So,
okay, so for instance, you might determine that the bare minimum that you can do a master bedroom, if it's just, say, floors, walls, and accoutrements, furnishing and bedding. Okay, let's just say that, right? You might say the bare minimum that you can do that for is, let's pick a number, $20,000. I have no idea, right? So what you're saying is, in the conversation with a prospective client, if you said, oh, okay, so you're interested in a master bedroom, that's awesome. Oh, what do you need? You need carpet, you need wall covering, you need bedding, you need new furniture. That's terrific. What's your budget? My budget's $5,000. You just say, I'm not your girl. I'm not sure what my budget is. Well, I can tell you the budget should be about 20. And if they say, okay, then you did it. Is that what you're saying?
Sure. So most clients who called me were sort of in the same position that I was. I was their first interior designer for the most part. They'd never experienced working with one before. So they called me also asking me, what should my budget be?
Okay.
And very few clients actually came to me with a set budget, just because they hadn't done it before. But yes, so I did have numbers for what is my minimum for a room, how many hours do I think would that take me, how much would that cost you? And I in that first phone call, I give that number, and I sit with it and see what they say.
Right. And tell me about the times when you gave the number and it didn't work out, that the client was not prepared for that number. Tell us about those conversations, because I think that's what I keep hearing from people. Right. What do I do? Sure.
And you said it in very few words, that you say I'm not the girl for you. But actually, I wasn't so great at turning down clients before, and I still don't feel like I want to necessarily have them leave forever. Okay. So I will either, at that point, I was saying that my pipeline was full, because that was true. And I was currently working on projects of this caliber, and if I opened up in the next few months, I would call them back. And there were a few clients I would check in with once in a while just to let them know, even though their budgets were less than what I desired to work with, I would check in and just see how they're doing. So I didn't really leave people hanging forever.
Okay. Well, and it's wise because you said if they're also, in a younger demographic like yourself, they're eventually going to be, in 5 years in a different location of their life, I mean, and maybe they will need that same. So that's smart. Okay. And so what you're saying is that you would, in a more politically correct way than saying I'm not your girl, you would say, my pipeline is full right now and, I'm very involved in a big project. And of course, it would probably be hard to execute. Your project might get lost in the weeds if I took this on right now. And then did you sort of put in there, and maybe that budget isn't really realistic. A master bedroom, if we're going to look at that, is really going to be more in this price range, but I'll keep I'll keep your information here, and when the pipeline opens, I could always check back. And then that way they know that it should be 20 instead of 5. And when you check back, if they're never going to spend 20, they can just say to you, oh, never mind, I did it myself at Bed Bath & Beyond. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that.
Right.
There's room for that.
Exactly.
I can coexist with Bed Bath & Beyond. I can coexist with
Home Goods.
Okay. Yeah, all that.
That's right.
And I don't take offense to that.
No.
And really, I'm establishing that I do care about you and your project, even if you're not within my desired client scope. But yeah.
So would you say, looking back, that was? It almost sounds like to me that it's not quite so easy even now for you to be there. I hear that you are, and I see that your work on your portfolio, it has been. But tell us a little bit about that. Is it hard to do that? What is your experience? Is it just something that it's hard, but it's better for your business, so just do it and do it in the most gracious way because it's worth it? It's like exercise, right? Who the heck wants to do it half the time, but when you're done, you're glad you did it, right?
No, actually, now I've evolved in the last 2 years to absolutely being comfortable with talking to people about their budgets and letting them know if it doesn't work for me, and also sending them to other people who I would recommend who they could work with. That confidence comes with a little bit of time, a little bit of having multiple conversations and potential clients. And also doing that personal work on figuring out what I want for the company, what I want for our portfolio. And then once I have that foundation, that backbone, I can really just stick to that. And it's not as hard anymore.
Right. So the message is to your colleagues out there that are maybe a year or 2 or 3 behind you on the trajectory is to get clear first on what you want your company to look like, right? That's the first thing, because somebody might really, I interviewed Natalie Hurst a couple of weeks ago, and she's a mother of, I think it's 4 or 5 children, and she wouldn't want a whole project gut renovation at this point in her career because it doesn't fit her lifestyle. So it's whatever it is, get clear. So if you are a new designer and you've got good solid business experience under your belt and you want to be a full service firm, renovations, so forth, then get clear on it, identify it, and then start to do it towards it. Now, and I would say, would you agree that I don't care if you're in business 2 minutes or 20 years, if you don't have the business side down, you probably don't want to start a renovation design build firm, right? Like, you got to get some processes down first before you start spending somebody's dollar bills like that.
Yes, you should be confident in your systems that you can execute a project before you say yes. Although there is a little bit of it where you say yes and then you learn how to do it. Of course.
Right.
Be up for that.
Right. Well, you have to push yourself a little bit, but you have to be smart about where to push and where to. I just feel like what I'm learning from you is that you really did have a solid understanding on how a project should be managed. Whether or not you've evolved that over the 2 years of your business or not, and you've tweaked it, is I'm sure probably true, but not as important as it wasn't like, hey, I just spent 10 years picking and specifying beautiful things. Let me run a big project, and I don't have step 1 down.
Yes, absolutely. And my experience as a project manager wasn't necessarily client facing. It wasn't necessarily even design most of the time. It
Yeah.
really was the business part of the firm.
Even better,
Um,
right?
yeah, so and I had a lot of experience bookkeeping too, and managing, organizing projects. And I'm so grateful for that experience, but that's also the kind of person that I am, is I actually wanted to learn the systems before I started designing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
so
it's
yeah,
smart because it makes me think of Kimberly in my office. When she came to work for me, she spent the first 2 years just in the office, just doing all basically my back end stuff. So she, like you just said, not client facing, and
yep,
just learning how to write up window treatment orders, how to research
yes,
the different things that go with it, and how to, specify and price out rods and all this crazy crap that we have to
yes,
do. You know what I mean? And
yes,
and she did all of that back end work for my projects. And then she spent 3 full years coming with me to every single project and watching and learning the client facing part of it, but then
yes,
still being tasked with all the back end stuff on it. And so now, 5 years later, she's like, I love it. I just look across the desk and she's running her 10 projects. I'm running my 10 projects,
yes.
and it's awesome. But it comes from that strength of, a lot of times younger people, when they go to work for a firm, I've talked with a lot of people here. Gail Davis comes to mind. She had worked for Bunny Williams when she first came out of design college, and David Kleinberg. These are both very high end, high profile shops in New York City, right?
I listened to her podcast as well.
Yes, yes, yes. And she said the same thing. Learn everything. Don't be afraid of, the quote unquote, I don't know if the words that she used were the grunt work or the task work, but that's where the magic is. That's where you come out and learn how to do it on your own. And a lot of times younger designers that are working as assistants and so forth are like, they want to do the fun stuff. And it's like, you know what? You'll do the fun stuff. You got to learn the hard stuff. So good for you.
Definitely.
So tell us a little bit. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know any principal, any business owner who would not be excited to have that kind of assistant who
Believe
wants
me.
to take on more responsibility, who wants to help with the back end.
That's the truth.
And
that's your best way to make yourself important to that principal. That is your best way. I mean, Kimberly did it for me. I mean, when she wasn't in that building 3 days, and I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be very different than any person I've ever hired before.
Great.
Very excited.
Yeah. I was energized by the systems, really.
Yes, good for you. Good for you. So tell us a little bit, Lynn, about, we teased everybody at the beginning. Well, I was teased at the beginning about your experience at working in editorial, because you have been now featured in many magazines. So tell us a little bit about that. What are some of the ins and outs and the angles of the way? I'm going to make an assumption that it's something in the process of doing the project that you're thinking about the editorial. Like, what is the cheat sheet there?
Exactly. So going back to being intentional, and so my experience in editorial was I was an editorial assistant. I also wrote a few pieces for Rue magazine, for California Home and Design. And I saw the kinds of photo shoots that were being selected, the kinds of homes that were catching the attention of editors. And so when I design, I absolutely think about where I want that project to go. And I also design looking at a project, or even potentially interviewing for a project, seeing if it's portfolio worthy. So that's a bit of criteria that I have when I look at projects and when I talk to clients, and seeing how adventurous they are, if they have a strong vision, or if they could be molded to a stronger vision. And so right at the beginning, when I set off, I already know where I wanted to go.
Wow.
Yeah, which magazine, how to design for that magazine's aesthetic. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you what that reminds me of. It reminds me of conversations I've had with both Amy Fleury and Ren Miller. And Ren Miller is the editor of Design New Jersey, a shelter magazine here. And of course, Amy Fleury is now a PR expert, and she comes from many years of working at high-end magazines as an editorial, manager, right? Curator. Mm-hmm. And both of them said exactly this. They said, before you pitch a magazine, understand what that magazine's aesthetic is, right? And so you're just saying, you're from the other side, which is so cool. Instead of doing a project, then looking around to see which magazine it would work for, you have, like, I'm picturing you. You're like, okay, Rue likes this look, Lonny likes this look, Domino likes this look, Sunset likes this look. And then when you go into a project, you mentally run through and say, oh, this is a perfect fit for Domino, or this is a perfect fit for Sunset. That is really, really brilliant.
At the beginning, I do that.
Yes.
And I design it with that intention. And I also wanted to say, I did listen to the podcast you just mentioned, and I wanted to add one more thing, which is when you're scoping out a magazine that you want to be in, yes, know what their point of view is, know who their audience is, is it for Sunset, so Sunset's for people who live on the West Coast mostly. And so their projects are based in the West Coast. Their audience is, they're a very loyal fan base, ranging in age, but probably not the millennial crowd, so know who you're aiming to be your readership. But also, when you do your research on the magazines, they have themes for every month. So is it a makeover issue? Is it a technology issue? Is it a gardening issue? So know that, like, take a look at 12 months, and because they repeat the themes every year.
Right. And it's right on their websites. It tells you what their editorial calendar is.
Yeah. Look at that and say, oh, I have a perfect outdoor patio, like a patio project, and I think it would be great for your garden issue. So pitch it very specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. And so when you say that you look for projects that are portfolio worthy, again, let's be specific here. Mm-hmm. Do you at this point have the luxury of being able to literally walk away from a project that you feel like will never be portfolio worthy? Or do you, okay, this is a good project and everything's fantastic about it and I love these clients. I don't think it's ever going to be a portfolio, but I have another one in the pipeline that's a portfolio project. Like where's that line for you?
Sure. Yes. No, sometimes I will. It's all up to my discretion. It's like maybe the client is a wonderful, wonderful person to work with, and I don't want to pass up the opportunity to work with this great person. So I will still take the project. But I will usually have other projects in my pipeline that are gearing towards editorial. Yes.
How many do you have? How big is your company now, Lynn? Do you have people on staff? What are you looking like?
I have 2 employees, so 3 people total. And
what are their roles?
I have a design assistant, and I also have just another interior designer.
So who does all this active outreach and marketing to these publications? Is it you?
No. So I'm still working with Cooper Communications.
Oh, hello.
Krista.
Right. Krista does it. Right. Okay.
So Krista does some of it. She does a lot of pitching, traditional pitching to interior design industry outlets. Mm-hmm. And on my own, I use Instagram to connect with other editors. I also just have a strong network of local craftspeople and vendors that I'm always excited to talk about, and we share and we support each other. So I'm just out there.
Okay. When you say the other vendors and craftspeople, you are talking about where, maybe you have a project that features something from a local artist, and so then you might use that as the angle for the pitch and something so forth like that, because maybe that month is all about whatever for the magazine's editorial calendar. Is that what you mean?
Oh, no, that's not what I mean.
Okay. I'm glad I asked.
And just in getting my name out there, I think it's always an accumulation of the different efforts of reaching out to people.
Okay.
So when I reach out to my vendors and craftspeople, I'm excited about the new collections that they're coming out with. Maybe I say we should collaborate on something together, or I'll use your new collection in a project. And what if they're simultaneously promoting their products and they happen to be in my interiors, that is some cross promotion that can happen.
Right.
Um, so everyone succeeds.
Okay.
together.
Yeah, no, look, your theme here is intentional. I love it. It's about being intentional. If you're working on something and you know that that particular vendor or craftsman, like you said, is looking to promote that product, then you can use it. Then like you said, you can both advertise and market that, the product is available and this is what it looks like in a finished space or something.
Yeah.
So very exciting. Now, what would you say to go back a little bit and just give us some more tips because look, we started to talk about how did you get work without the portfolio. So you got that lucky first job with that guy who happened to be well connected and so forth. Are there other things that you could say to your colleagues listening that really, because that is one of the biggest questions that I get. What do we do? And maybe more talk a little bit about being confident in the beginning when the portfolio is slim to none and trying to portray to a client that you're able to do this project that they have.
Sure. And I have many peers in my space who are starting on their own too. And we can't necessarily use the projects from other firms we've worked for. And so what I see them doing, and a part of what I did also, is they're using their inspiration boards as a point of reference. So I have some friends who have very built out Pinterest boards and amazing point of views there. So they can use that to create a vision board for a potential client.
Okay.
And show their excitement and their expertise in a particular kind of design, maybe from that. That goes a long way, actually, if they can share in the excitement and the dream with the client.
So what you're saying is just the way if you were to walk into your dream living room project, say it's the beautifully laid out, perfectly architecturally designed living room, the way you would put a vision board together for a client, put a vision board together for that living room and just put it up on your website as inspiration. This is my aesthetic. This is the way I can create.
Oh, yeah. And when
it.
I first started my website, and I still have this tab on there, there's a section of my website called Inspiration, and that just shows the dream of what I would imagine your kitchen could look like, and what kind of kitchens I want to design. So that puts it out there.
So you're not saying I've designed this kitchen. You're just saying this is the kind of kitchens that I'd love to design.
Yeah.
And if you want yours to look like that, click buy.
Yes, let's both work towards that.
Okay.
So that's in setting the aesthetic. I think you could always set up a part of your apartment, have a little photo shoot yourself, put that up, anything to get images up. But I think that's just in the beginning, and those images should be edited out eventually once your portfolio.
Right, once you actually have something. Yeah. Right. But that's a good valid point for somebody that's starting out. Now, what I can't tell if you had this curve or not. I feel like almost every designer I've ever talked to has the experience, unfortunately, more often than they'd like, of working for free for friends or family and, to get off the ground. And did you have to do that? And do you have friends that had to? And what's your opinion on doing that?
Okay. All right. Okay, one of the best things I learned in college, I went to school for interior design too. One of my professors told me in my last year, she said, don't work for free.
Don't do it.
She said, even if you get a internship after this, don't work for free. And at first I was like, I don't believe you, because how else are people going to hire me? How am I going to get experience? It's hard out there.
Right.
And when I was working in editorial, I did work for free sometimes in editorial. So But once I reached the point of working in interior design, I started to take that more seriously, that piece of advice.
Okay.
And then I really started to figure out what my worth was. My worth as, maybe a design assistant, my worth as a project manager, and then my worth as a freelance designer. So yeah, that's
Okay. Well, it's funny because I have heard both sides of it, and I think there's a fine line and a distinction. So, for instance, I've just had a conversation in real life recently, in face-to-face conversation with somebody that is just like was lamenting how here she is again 3/4 of the way through a project where she is doing 3/4 of it for no fee. She did not set up the parameters correctly in the beginning, and it's sort of a friend. It's like what it is it's like their kids are friends, and so then it gets a little weird because you're going to see her on the playground and all that stuff. And so that is, to me, is a no-no, right? That's a no-no. But I also recently interview Monique Duarte, who also, in addition to being an interior designer, is a consultant for interior designers. And she described how her first project was for a friend, but they set it up like a real project. And she said, I want to do this for you for free, but we're going to do it like you're a paying client, and I'm going to make presentations, and we're going to have deadlines, and we're going to do everything. And so I think that's where designers sort of forget the distinction that, yes, like you said, your first instinct was, wait, there's, I don't have a portfolio, I don't have business, I might have to do something for free. But there is a big difference between doing something for free that you're getting taken advantage of because it's a friend, neighbor, relative that you didn't set it up like a business transaction, and setting it up like a business transaction if that's what you're choosing to do. So you didn't need to do that. But everybody's life and everybody's path is different. But I believe that, like Monique's case, the way she set it up, again, so use our word now of the hour, intentionally, it can be effective. But it's that loosey-goosey of, oh, you're my girlfriend and we play tennis together, and now I'm going to help you decorate. And the next thing you know, I'm on my 90th trip to the store with you, and you not paying me. So
obviously that is a predicament that can happen, and I feel for everybody that gets asked to do that. And I've been asked to do that too. So again,
it's hard. It's so hard.
My rule is like I try not to work for friends, and if I do, I just say it's free. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into building my friends necessarily.
Right. In other words, you just go into it saying, I'm just going to give this away, and that's I'm putting it into the universe, and I'm happy with that, as opposed to doing it and begrudging it.
Oh, yeah. Breeding the resentment. That's not somewhere I want to go.
Not productive.
And as far as the advice that you just gave about setting the parameters of a real project with a friend, I think that's very smart. For me, if I am going to do anything for free or just help a client out, they're not under contract anymore, but they might need a little help. What I do is I just ask myself, do I have time for this? I do want to help this person out, but also would they be comfortable with waiting? Like, so maybe I'll say, okay, I'll help you choose a pillowcase if that's, but I don't have time right now. So can you wait a few weeks? And if it's not urgent, and it's not costing anything, they usually are happy with that.
Right.
So yes, I will help you out, but I'm not going to sacrifice my paid work first.
Well, it's funny because it's just, as a profession, I don't know how many, I guess there's other professions out there that get abused in the same way. But I mean, if you needed to hire a batting coach for your son, and if your kid's friend's father was a batting coach, I don't know that you'd really drop him off every week, once a week, for an hour-long lesson and not feel like you have to pay him for it. Like, it's crazy how people just are like, she's just helping me with this. It's like, okay, but she's not earning money while she's helping you with it,
Yes,
so.
I also keep track of my time pretty meticulously. And I will tell them, I will say, hey, I helped you out with this. And usually, and this took me an hour and a half, and usually this would be the charge for it, but I'm happy
Right.
to do it. But just keeping the constant reminder.
Yes. Well, that's a good point, because sometimes the other party is just not even aware of the value of it and how long it does take to do it. And, what I always say, if it's so darn easy, then go do it. You know what I mean? It's because they hit you with, well, that really didn't take it. How long could it have taken? Whatever. You didn't do it.
Oh yeah. No, I love educating people. I love just being transparent. That's a huge part of how I run my business and how I talk to my clients. And that just, that tells people that our time is valuable as interior designers. It also just tells them that we have really great systems. Like if I was going to do something and I've timed it and I didn't have to, but I did, that lets them know how I operate
Right.
day to day, every day. Intentionally, that word of the hour, just
Yes.
how I am.
Right.
So,
No, I can hear it. It's awesome. So it's really something else what you've created in just, on one hand in 2 years, but of course it's 12 years in the making, but truly that is an accomplishment, what the level of your work and what's going on as an independent designer in just 2 years. And of course it's so clear why and how you've done it now. It's not by accident, it is by intention.
Yep. It's not just lucky. Really, it's like how I positioned myself to take advantage of the opportunities that presented myself.
Definitely. And the reaching out for help with a PR agent, Krista is a rock star, and your other coach, Sarah, sounds like she's also really very helpful and, helps you move forward. And like you said, stay accountable. So I think it's awesome, Lynn, and I really appreciate your coming on the program and sharing your perspective, because we've had people who are well seasoned kind of reflect back on the beginning, and it's sort of a long time ago, and it's hard to feel it and see it sometimes when they are so successful. And then we've had newer ones come on and talk about their struggles and so forth. But this is I don't know that I've talked to anybody that in 2 years has created this. So I think it is a particularly inspiring episode because it makes it that it's possible. But I think that it expresses that you very much express that it's possible because you set it up to be possible. So big part of it.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's a lot of personal work that I've done too. It's setting my goals. It's also setting my boundaries with myself, with my clients. And that's just knowing what you want.
Very good. Well, and it's like you said, you did the work to know it. It's not like you just sat around and said, I wonder. So, and that's a great point too, that, I've said it, my husband and I talk about it all the time. You have to establish your mission and your core values. And that's basically a fancy way to say, what do you want and what will you make this business be? So good for you. I believe those are the first steps in creating a solid business. So I really thank you. I'm going to really be very interested to watch your career continue to grow. You'll probably be like back on the show in 4 or 5 years, and God knows what it'll be.
I would love to be back on the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see what happens, and we probably don't have to wait 4 or 5 years is my guess.
No, there's constant evolving.
That's it.
Where I was 2 years ago and where I am now.
What do you have plans? I'd be curious. Now you're so intentional. You probably have a little bit just before I let you go.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to talk about it. So this month is May, and it's a big month for us in working with Sunset Magazine. Recently I completed the home renovation of editor-in-chief Irene Edwards' Victorian.
Whoa.
And we had that shot, and it's out in the May issue right now.
Wow.
So going to see that. And so this month we'll be promoting that project. It's really, really beautiful, and worked with a lot of vendor partnerships too. So that's something I'm really excited about to move forward with. A lot of vendor partnerships, brand sponsorships, setting us up eventually. I think in my 5 to 10 year plan is to want to do any kind of business licensing, brand licensing.
Okay.
So getting that started. Also, this month we are working with Sunset on their celebration weekend. So Sunset Celebration Weekend is once a year. This year it's May 20th through 21st, the weekend. And what they do is they open up their test gardens. They have a big festival of panels and cooking seminars, and like it's really fun and beautiful, and it happens in Sonoma.
Wow.
And yeah, so this year I'm pairing up with two companies. I'm doing a talk panel with Sunbrella. And I'm also working again at the Delta booth, Delta Faucets, giving design consultations on baths and kitchens. And I did that last year also.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that's just for the month of May.
The hell with the 3-year plan, just the one weekend plan.
Really, these are just like the marketing things that I do, which have, they're month to month, really. As far as client work goes and what my plans are, my goals are for that is, those are actually very attainable. My immediate goals are very attainable. And they're quite short term. So I would say like last year, I gave an interview and I was figuring out my goal for the year. And my goal for that year was just to get a house that was in a more luxury upscale neighborhood in where I live. And that was it. I just told myself I want to get a house in Piedmont, and I did. So
good for you.
And that was my short-term goal. And so that increases every year. Maybe this year I want to get 2 houses in a different upscale market near me. And, or have a silly one. Like I want to work on a house with a sunroom. So I think those are attainable. They're not too far away. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Then I think also going back to the business stuff, I wanted to say that we are working on changing our business model up a little bit. Right now, I only offer high and full service interior design.
Okay.
And I am also going to start offering this year a design consulting service, and that would happen in our studio. And that's just giving a design review for people who've already started projects. It's sort of like when you go to a doctor and you want a second opinion.
Okay.
We could the second opinion. And then the third thing that we're working on is Design Kit. And Design Kit is a room in a box concept, which we may all be familiar with, has existed for the last 10 years.
Right.
But we're designing a box too.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. So I'm not at all surprised that when I asked what's ahead for you, there's 20 things.
Yeah, there's so many things.
Good for you. Good for you. I you know what? Huge lesson. Figure out what you want, write it down, work out how to have it happen, and do the back end work so that you're prepared to do it. I love it. I love it a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Very exciting. So this show is probably airing on May 17th. So if you so if anybody is in the Sonoma area is where that festival is. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sonoma, California.
Yes. And so if anybody is listening in the Sonoma area this weekend, you're going to be there, right, Lynn? They can go and meet you at the Sunbrella panel and at the Delta display.
Yes.
Very cool. Very exciting. Well, if any of you do go, tell Lynn that you heard about her on the podcast.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I wish you a lot of luck. Stay in touch with me. I'm going to want to maybe do like a follow-up in a year and see what's going on with you, okay?
Yeah, I would love to.
All righty. Have a great day.
Okay. Thanks, LuAnn.
My great thanks to the featured sponsor of our podcast, Cravat Inc. Of all the terrific things about Cravat, do you know about CuratedCravat.com? I know you've heard me tell you all about it for this last year and a half, but have you taken a minute to really go and look and check out CuratedCravat.com yet? You have to see this collection of the most unique, high-quality finished products for the home. The collection includes furniture, lighting, bedding, rugs, accessories, and more. It is so comprehensive. It features customized designs as well as unique hand-picked pieces from the global design market. CuratedCravat.com is available exclusively to the trade. That's right. No direct consumer purchasing. They have your back at Cravat Inc. And have you checked out the innovative ready-to-ship upholstery program? This is groundbreaking in our industry. Where else can you find someone that delivers custom quality furniture fast? I'll tell you where else. Nowhere else. You see, it's the combination custom, quality, and fast. That is at CuratedCravat.com. You can shop the site by product category, by stylized product stories, and through the curated rooms designed by the industry tastemakers. At CuratedCravat.com, they are committed to making your job more efficient by providing unmatched customer service coupled with an exceptional product offering. Cravat Inc. stands firm in their mission to serve the interior design trade at the very highest level. And the last and one of the most fabulous features is the process is so simple. That's right. Design, click, delivered. Easy as that. One last thing. Cravat Inc. has a thank you to you as a listener of the podcast. If you are on the site and you are ready to make a purchase, any one purchase, you can get 10% off as their thanks to you. Enter the code CKPodcast at checkout for 10% off any one purchase. Well, I do thank them very much, and I really do hope that you will take a moment to see how CuratedCravat.com can help you run your business more efficiently. Intention. It's a great word. It's a serious word. Its synonyms include purpose, plan, objective. Lynn not only runs her business with intention, she opened her business with intentions identified from the outset. And then she discussed how she revisits her intentions, her goals, her plans every year. What's the saying? What gets tracked gets done. Makes sense, doesn't it? A couple of other tips from Lynn and the discussion include these. If you are interested in getting published, know each magazine inside and out, understand its style, the types of projects that they publish, and have this in mind at the outset of your design. And that's the little twist on the conversation with Lynn. We've had both Amy Fleury and Ren Miller, even Andrew Joseph, other people tell us that when you go to pitch a particular source with a project, that make sure you really understand the style of that magazine or that outlet. But this is a little different. Lynn actually knows each outlet's style and look so well that when she first sees a project, she immediately attaches in her mind the way she'll design this project so that it specifically goes to the demographic of the outlet that she has in mind. I think it's a genius idea. I love it a lot. And how about for any of you who are just graduating this year from interior design school, or you're maybe in your first year or two working for somebody, how do you go about working? How do you go about your day? How do you show up for work? Are you eager and invested, looking to understand and looking to be taught anything and everything? Are you like Lynn, a sponge? And how about the outside team that Lynn has assembled to teach her and advise her on the things she has yet to learn? Cooper Consulting for PR, Anchor and Orbit for business coaching. And I'll tell you off air, Lynn mentioned that she also employs other advisors as her team of experts to help her stay on track and really continue to get this business off on the right foot. So we talked about that maybe down the road that she'd be back on the show again to talk more in more detail about those other experts that she has. So stay tuned for that. And as clarification, sometimes I forget that just because I had a conversation with somebody already, that it isn't already on the air and that you know about it. So I was talking about Rania and our conversation about interns. So Rania Barrett is the business development manager for House of Funk, and her show is all about how to find, interview, hire, and train interns. But you haven't heard that yet, so it hasn't been put up on iTunes yet. So look for it. It'll be up in a couple of weeks. It's a very good show. And she really does, I had a couple of ahas during that show, which is awesome. That's my favorite part. Anyway, so if you're in Sonoma this weekend, stop by the Sunset Celebration weekend and say hi to Lynn. Tell her you heard her on the show and give her a high five for me. And I also want to mention to you that if you're planning to come into New York City for the ICFF, the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, it's happening May 21st to the 24th at the Javits Center. And on Monday afternoon, the 21st, May 21st, this is 2017, I'll be at the Kravat booth. So Kravat has asked me to come stop over and maybe we'll do a little podcasting from there, but if you're there at the Javits Center, please come over to the Kravat booth and say hello to me because I love putting faces to the names. All right. And Kimberly will be with me, so you get to meet her too. All righty. That is it for today. Thank you so much for showing up. If you're liking the show, if you're enjoying the show, would you do me a favor and share it with somebody? You know that you can write from your phone, email, or Facebook message a show, an episode with somebody. And I would really appreciate your help spreading the word. And also remember our sponsors, Cherish, Curated Kravat, Kate the Socialite, My Doma Studio. Show them a little love whenever you can. Thanks so much. Have an excellent day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.